Alright, we're getting back into it. Scrap Mechanic Survival. I haven't been in here in a little bit. What I think I want to focus on today is trying to get some sort of like automatic farming set up at the farm. So I'm going to need a couple of things for that. I'm going to need pistons. So I have one here, but I'm going to need a couple more pistons. Probably two or three more. I do need a water cannon and a water tank, as well as some sensors and a vacuum pump. So I'm going to need to collect a few things to be able to build something like that. Let's get going, and I'll be back when I have stuff together, all right? All right, I'm sure at this point I did some sort of arbitrary cutaway where I did something clever like 1 day later or something like that. This is not 1 day later in the game. This is a couple days later in game and a full day later in the real world. So I finished my auto farm here, which pretty crazy looking thing here, but most of this is just aesthetic stuff to make it look kind of like the water's actually going over there. If you do something like this, you need to make sure that your water tank is physically connected to your farm. In my case, I use these pipes to kind of make it look like it's connected. Normally I just do like blocks, but I wanted to actually make it look kind of cool this time, so I did the pipes to come up and over. Little brackets to make it look like it's actually doing something. I have a light switch here to control outside lights so I can fight off the mobs. Still have the tier 2, tier 1 metal, whatever you want to call this, as a sort of functional barricade. And the actual auto farm system itself is pretty simple. If I pull out my connect tool here, it's going to look like an absolute disaster because we have all the lighting connected into that switch and just wires going every which way. So I'm going to explain it rather than try to show it with the connect tool because it's going to get really confusing looking. So basically, these pipes up here line up with the tube in here to make it look like the water is getting to the water cannon as it gets to a position to water the plants. But actually, there's just these two sensors up here, the left and the right. The first one starts immediately. The second one starts with a 1 block delay. The first one here is going to fire immediately, which is going to tell the water cannon to fire on the first block. It doesn't normally catch it on the first way out here. Normally this can be rectified by just skipping this like 1 block ahead, but I wanted to get the most bang for my buck here. This setup uses 2 level 5 pistons for outbound travel and 3 base pistons for the lateral direction here. Basically, just to kind of show how this works here, the first one's a water cannon. Second one is a chest that you would put all your seeds into. The actual ports are not connected between the two chests to prevent any kind of overflow. This one is just our pickup, so this is only going to collect our crops and our seeds. So obviously I've gotten a couple runs through with this thing already. I have redesigned it since I've been using it just to make it look a little nicer, but that's really all there is there. This sensor just detects if there is a crop. And if there is a crop, it has connection just straight up to this NOR gate, which basically works to invert that. So it inverts it, so as long as there's nothing here, that is good. Goes into an AND gate. One side of the AND gate goes into this gate here. The other side of the gate goes into the delayed switch up there. Because obviously right now it can't trigger because there's nothing here for it to plant. If it did, it would just fire your seeds into the ground, and it's in a location that the watering cannon isn't even contacting. So that just wouldn't work. just demonstration here to see how this thing works. Put down our seeds. Doesn't really matter what kind. And we're going to leave all these buttons out. So the first one here controls our in and out. And 1, 2, 3 controls our left and right. That controls what lane we are currently in. So with all of these off and this off, that is the base direction for it. It basically sweeps up, down by you controlling the switches here. So if I hit the button, it'll go out and it'll just plant. Because of the speed of the pistons and the speed of the vacuum pumps, it normally leaves like gaps like this. And as you come back, you can see that it's going to... Oh, water cannon got disconnected. That'll be a problem. Let's try that now. So it'll go out and water the tiles as it comes over them. Just like that. And as you can see, when it's sweeping back, you can see that the sensor is triggering on each of the crops here. So that's working correctly. And you do see I have a bearing on here. In most of my world saves, I've had to have a bearing on here to change the angle of the sensor. But for this one, for some reason, the servo, or the sensor rather, the sensor is at the correct height already. So I don't actually need this or the controller that's right here. But again, your mileage may vary. You might find you need to have this and actually have this angled. Normally I find an angle between, 5 and like 15 degrees of it pointing slightly downward. And a lot of times I'm actually putting the sensor in the line of travel. I don't normally have it out of the line of travel like this, but it's just how it ended up, and it's been working great. I mean, I'm able to farm all of these tiles here. So we have 4 across, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down, 40 crops, and it's auto watering, auto planting, auto harvesting. The only thing that you have to do manually is just make sure you load the seeds that you want to plant. Again, previous versions of these that I've done, I've had problems where this sensor isn't triggering correctly, so it fires the crops into, or fires the seeds into crops that are already planted, and you're just wasting seeds. So that's why you normally want to be careful with a setup like this when you're dealing with the higher level crops like the pineapple, potato, and broccoli, ones that are actually worth something, and you don't want to lose the seeds because you could have trouble getting them again. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the setup. And right now, because there's only 3 crops, obviously it's not going to trigger any enemies. But if it were, I would just turn on the light here, and this actually kind of floods the whole area out here with illumination for me. So pretty happy with how this turned out. If you have any questions on how this setup works, feel free to post something in the comments, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get back. I'm going to see you guys on the next one, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit like on the video if you enjoy what you see. And feel free to comment. Like I said before, if you have any questions on anything you've seen here with the farm design, feel free to ask me. I'll gladly explain it. I'd love to hear any comments if you guys have any suggestions on how to make the farm a little bit better. But as of right now, the way that it's set up really doesn't use a whole lot of resources, so it's very easy to get it, early game like this. So yeah, just gonna cut it here and see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.